There is one important thing they had to add, and that is make my monster grow. And she does say it, so...
And she says it terribly.
But does she say it?
She says it terribly. It's not the same. You need that original, make my monster grow! Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome back to the Great and Grim podcast. He's great.
He's grim.
And today, we're going to start off with the most important thing to have happened probably this year. Suck it, Dune. The Spider-Man movie.
Okay, first off, did love Dune, but yeah, Spider-Man was just fantastic. Nostalgia. Oh my goodness, I loved it so much as someone who grew up watching all the other movies. I felt like it was
everything
made
I
for
wanted.
me. Yeah, exactly. Love that movie. Love what they did. By the way, we're gonna spoil a bunch of stuff about Spider-Man, so if you don't want to hear that, just skip to a different part of the video. Maybe we'll put up a timestamp. Who knows?
I mean, we generally try to put in timestamps. Don't know if they always work, but yeah.
We'll make an effort, and yeah, that's about it.
So before we get too into it, how would you rank this on your list of all the Marvel movies?
All the Marvel movies?
Yes, all of them.
Probably my favorite, now that I think about it. Like, it's recent, so that might not be fair, but yeah, it's probably my favorite one.
High praise.
How about you? How would you rank it?
I mean, probably like number 2.
What's number 1?
Well, I mean, probably still Endgame, just because it was that big culmination of 10 years of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but this kind of was a culmination of 15 years of stuff.
This was like 20 years of everything. This was all Spider-Man all the time.
All the Spider-Man from all the time, yeah.
I wasn't super high up on the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
No? Did you think he was too young, or?
No, I liked him when they introduced him in, what was it, Civil War?
Sounds right.
It was just his standalones didn't feel special to me. It was probably like the start of my descent into being like blasé about Marvel in general.
Okay.
Like, I like him as an actor and as Spider-Man, just the movies I was just kind of like, oh, okay. I thought it was kind of annoying how they kept shoving Iron Man into the Spider-Man story as well, the way I understand why they did it.
Because he needed a father figure?
Yeah, and also because, like, Iron Man's the one who brought Spider-Man into the fold. So, that whole thing, like, when is it in the first one? Against Vulture, when, like, the ferry breaks in half, and then Iron Man shows up to save the day and all that. I'm just kind of like, oh, there's a crutch there, you can fall back on it.
Yeah.
Well, no, I have nothing else to say, just I wasn't super high up on Spider-Man as it was until this movie, because they finally let Spider-Man be Spider-Man, in my view.
Mm-hmm. And he wasn't relying on his super technology suit.
Yeah, and it was very much more focused on how Spider-Man should act, rather than I'm a quirky kid who's kind of out of my league, thinking, oh wow, look at how crazy everything is. Look at my tech, essentially.
Yeah, to me, Spider-Man was always just the guy who always tried his best to do the right thing while making as many jokes as he could while he did it. And then at the end of the day, won, but lost something important along the way. And this movie really was epitomizing that part of Spider-Man's usual journey.
Yeah, like, I haven't read comics, so don't know tons about all the Spider-Man lore, but I mean, what you just described is essentially what they did with, the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans and everything. The one thing is that this has to do with, the Dresden Files, is I think Jim Butcher, the author, has come out multiple times and said, like, one of the easiest ways to write his character, Harry Dresden, his main character, is you have him show up and get, like, the crap beat out of him, and so long as he keeps, getting up and fighting, then it turns out okay. And I feel like he just stole that from Spider-Man. Because Spider-Man is very much, gets beat down into the ground, and he just stands back up. I
mean, if you're gonna steal a trope, that's a pretty good one to make you like the protagonist.
I mean, I will say that I really like that part in the first Spider-Man against the Vulture, when he's like crushed under the rubble, and then he just, pushes it up enough to try to get out. Yeah. So I feel like that I have seen the comic strip of that.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, of course, which had him getting the crap beaten out of him by the Green Goblin, which is a thing they keep bringing back, which I love, because Willem Dafoe being angry and scary is a highlight, really.
I mean, Willem Dafoe is just great.
He's a fantastic actor, and he can do any role, too. Like, do you remember Boondock Saints, that movie?
Oh, yeah. There was a firefight!
Exactly. He can be over the top and hammy, and I will watch every second of it and love it. And he's got an intensity that I'd say is only really rivaled by Daniel Day-Lewis, because he's just insane in the best possible way.
Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis. Mm-hmm. I can't recall any movie that he's been in aside from like Gangs of New York.
There Will Be Blood?
I never saw it.
It's him being his most Daniel Day-Lewis.
That's the scene with the milkshake, right?
That is the end of the movie, yep.
Yeah, the milkshake scene. I know that one verbatim because it's the best thing to say, but...
He does drink your milkshake. Yeah, he's great, but back to Willem Dafoe. In the latest movie, he stole the show, I think.
No
he
question.
was the most memorable part by far. Not to make anyone else seem worse or like they did a bad performance, but he was just a standout actor in that movie. I really loved it.
See, I tie him with Doc Ock, but that's because I have a really soft spot for Doc Ock.
As in, you grew up watching the cartoons, or you just loved his performance?
I grew up with the cartoons. I have I think I still have the Spider-Man action figures, including Doc Ock's, and also, but I can't remember his name. Can't remember the actor's name, but he just is really great in the role as well.
Molina?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also probably helps that I was a huge fan of the Spider-Man 2 game.
Okay.
And that's the last game I can think of where, it was like a game based on a movie that actually followed the plot of the movie. Mm-hmm. And also the web slinging was amazing.
Yeah, that was just a fun game.
Yeah, it was an amazing game.
But Molina, I think the only other role I really remember him from is in one of the Indiana Jones movies. It's the one where it starts off with the boulder rolling. Which one is that?
Isn't that just called Indiana Jones?
Is it?
Oh, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That
what
one
am
was
I talking about?
That was the Ark. Yeah. Okay. He was at the beginning of that movie, going into that same place that has the boulder falling down, and he has a ton of tarantulas placed on his back. So he's got a fear of spiders going way back.
Oh, good. Yeah, but then, I am going to say this, I'm not the biggest fan of the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Okay, I don't think you're alone there.
Yeah, I didn't think they were the greatest. Unfortunately, it means that I don't really like Electro. I don't care about Jamie Foxx's character. I'm glad they didn't bring back Paul Giamatti as the Rhino, though I did enjoy when they threw shade at it, I just fight a guy in a rhino suit.
Yeah, they were being very meta with a lot of the jokes, and some of the complaints people made about the movie was it was for Spider-Man fans and people who really loved all the older movies, but as someone who did love all the older movies, I thought it was great that they were talking about that sort of thing, where it was...
I'm just amazed they threw in the "I'm something of a scientist myself" meme.
Oh, and my back?
Yeah. That was good.
It's like at the end of Into the Spider-Verse, they did the Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man thing as well, which, now that I think about it, they did in this movie as well, when they were in the science lab.
Yeah.
Because that's how you speak to the kids these days. You gotta throw in all the memes and things they know.
I will say that just, from when I grew up, I am very much Tobey Maguire as my Spider-Man.
Yep.
He's the classic Spider-Man for me. However, I think Andrew Garfield did an amazing job in this movie.
I think so too.
Yeah, his resolutions and everything that came along with him being tied into a neat bow. I loved that. It was amazing.
I actually rather like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I definitely can't say there aren't a lot of faults with them and things that could have been changed for the better, but I always thought Andrew Garfield was a good Spider-Man.
Yeah, the biggest issue that I always had with it is that they tried to portray him as, this quirky outcast, kind of like what they did with Tobey Maguire. And I'm sure if you rewatched, Sam Raimi's Spider-Mans with Tobey Maguire initially, everyone will look back at even that first movie, which was amazing, and just, cover their eyes and be like, "That's so cringe, bro."
Well, yeah, but that was part of the
But
charm.
that's exactly, that's how it's supposed to be. Whereas for Andrew Garfield, it's like, okay, what's he doing? Oh, look at him by himself doing awesome skateboard tricks.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not quirky, out of place. You're super cool and able to do something that I'm extremely jealous of.
Yeah, he was too cool. That was his problem.
Yeah. If I could change one thing, is that they point out in this third Spider-Man, they do a bunch of recreations of scenes and references.
Mm-hmm.
I do wish that when MJ's falling off the tower and Andrew Garfield saves her, I wish they had recreated the scene with him shooting his web to grab her instead and having, the web turn into the hand almost and grab her and then, save her an inch above the ground. So just recreate that Gwen Stacy death scene, but opposite. Instead, he just jumps down and catches her.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that probably would have been great, but...
I mean, I'm fine with what they did.
Would that be too much?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, that's the whole point of this movie.
To be too much.
Yeah, and I love it for that. I love it for that too muchness.
Excellent. So, in case people are lost with what we're talking about here, essentially, we love the movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should absolutely see it. But also, if you haven't seen the movie, we've given you a ton of spoilers, and I'm not going to apologize for that. We gave you a warning.
No, I will say my one gripe, and there's nothing you can do about it, is just right off the bat, I'm yelling at Spider-Man and Doctor Strange for the crux of the movie.
Yeah, that was a big plot hole. Just the whole...
It's not even like a plot hole. It's just stupidity where they make the characters dumb in order to create the plot.
Yeah.
Like, okay...
To me, that's a plot hole. Like, Doctor Strange is supposed to be a genius surgeon / sorcerer extraordinaire. He should know better. He should explain what the hell he's doing before he erases someone's identity completely.
Yeah, and I mean, on the other hand, you have Peter Parker, who's like, oh, one more exception. Okay, one more exception. And then, Doctor Strange is all, okay, I can't handle the spell. And then Peter Parker just keeps talking over him, like, oh, and one more. Oh, and one more. And the initial ones I'm fine with until he says the line where he's like, oh, and Aunt May, because when she found out I was Spider-Man the first time, that was just such a huge blow, and I can't handle going through that again. Ugh. Like, at that point, you're nitpicking. Like, come on, Peter.
He's changing the universe for you. Just don't mess with him too much.
Exactly. Like, who cares? That won't affect anything. If your Aunt May finds out again, then that's not detrimental in any way. The whole point of you doing this is so that your friends can get a proper education, go to MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And Aunt May forgetting that your Spider-Man isn't that big of a blow to anything.
But he loves his Aunt May.
Well, spoilers, he can love her in the afterlife.
Poor Aunt May. It's a nice mix-up from Uncle Ben dying. I like what they did.
Yeah, though, again, through in the great power comes great responsibility.
Well, it's a classic line. You gotta shove it in there somewhere.
Did Amazing Spider-Man have that exact word-for-word line again as well? I don't think it did. I think they, ad-libbed it to sound exactly like it, but didn't use those words.
Yeah, they messed around with it, and it was very, very awkward. But they were essentially just saying the exact same thing.
Also... one other extremely minor gripe that I had was just with the Aunt May death scene. I hated the fact that when she falls down and is dying, they do that stereotypical to keep it, PG-13. Like, oh, what's wrong with you? And then he takes his hand away, from her back, and there's the blood on his hands. And he's like, oh no, you're dying. And it's like, well, you couldn't actually, show any blood on Aunt May as she's bleeding out or anything like that? No, can't do that?
Well, is the movie even PG-13, or is it PG?
I have no idea, honestly.
I mean, it's Disney. They're going to try and put as little as possible.
It must be PG-13, right?
I mean, I hope so, but...
I feel like they use some low-grade swears in it, but I can't remember. I might be confusing with a different movie I watched recently.
Which movie?
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers? That was PG-13?
Well, I don't know. They throw the S word around a lot in that movie.
Goodness.
I know, and it was a terrible movie.
I mean, are you really shocked?
No, I'm not. It was just bad. Everything about it is terrible. For some reason, Zordon, who's played by, Breaking Bad guy, I can't remember his name right now.
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston. They made him look like, pretty much, to be fair, he came first, but he looks like Stefan Skarsgård from Dune. All naked babyish, and I'm like, gross.
But is that really the worst part of the movie?
I mean, there's a lot of things I really dislike about the movie. It's very obviously trying to be all hip and cool, and the worst thing about it is that they clearly paid a lot of money for a lot of, at the time, popular songs for the soundtrack, and when you hear it now, it already sounds out of date.
It's how old again?
The movie, 2017.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of the songs they're throwing in there, even though they're 4 years old, I'm sorry, your movies are out of date.
I can't remember. Do they have some Imagine Dragons?
I can't remember.
Who was popular that many years ago?
I don't know. You're asking me to remember what these songs were. I'm like, I could recognize them because I heard them on the radio, but I never cared enough to actually, know the names of these songs or artists. Also, it was really disjointed and odd. To be fair, had it on a second monitor when I was doing this, but there's this whole plot with the Pink Ranger, Kimberly, where she says she's a terrible person because one of her friends gave her a picture of herself in a risky pose, and then she sent that to the girl's boyfriend, and so it made this huge brouhaha, and so everyone hates her, and she's not friends with them anymore, and she admits that it was her fault. And then later on in the movie, I believe it's the girls who at the very start of the movie, like, cut her out of a picture and say, you're not our friend anymore, you can't be on the cheerleading squad, but their vehicle gets, like, pummeled and destroyed, and she's like, ha, serves you right. And I'm sitting there going, didn't you admit, like, half an hour earlier that you were the one at fault, and that they were right in being mad at you because you did something despicable and horrible?
Yeah, but don't worry about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just bad. Everything about it's bad. The actors are bad. Whoever played Rita's bad. It's weird that she's called Rita in this because they have them speaking alien language at the beginning, where it's like go ba go ba da ba da Zordon, and then Bryan Cranston turns around and is all like Rita. It's like, oh, used some English pronunciation on that one there, dude.
But there is one important thing they had to add, and that is make my monster grow. And she does say it, so...
And she says it terribly.
But does she say it?
She says it terribly. It's not the same. You need that original, make my monster grow! And she's just like, make my monster grow.
Now, I'm going to be honest, the original show also was not amazing. I just saw it at an age where I would enjoy that sort of thing.
With nostalgia. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I have it'd be old now, but I'm pretty sure I have the VHS copy of that one Power Rangers movie with the purple monster with the purple goo.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like that scared me as a child a bit. I can't remember.
Purple goo.
However, I'll also say, for this movie, it's all like they're obsessed with gold because the Rita needs gold to make Goldar, the gold monster, to rip a stone out of the world and kill everyone, essentially, for power.
I mean, that's an easy enough plot to follow. I'm here.
But this giant gold monster is full CGI, and so it's like liquid gold moving monster, and the CGI is terrible. It's atrocious.
Doesn't everyone love CGI fights?
No. Like, I mean, the thing is that nowadays, it's the reason why, spoilers, I don't think Avatar 2 is going to do very well, because all Avatar 1 had going for it was that it looked pretty. And where we are nowadays in filmmaking, and, just in general with Marvel movies and action schlock, CGI is nothing impressive. Every movie, I mean, if it's AAA, has good-looking CGI. Mm-hmm. So for this movie from 2017, where we had good-looking CGI, to just look terrible, oh, it's horrible. I can't stand it.
You're just used to the beautiful movies now.
Yeah, well, it just means that spectacle isn't the most important thing anymore. What's more important is the plot and the characters and the story being told.
And I mean, that's been pretty much true for video games for quite a while, too. Nobody really cares about, ooh, you've got the most beautiful graphics. Oh, it's so photorealistic. No, you only care about, is it fun to play? Or does it have a fantastic story? Pretty much.
Exactly.
That. Yeah.
I mean, there was that huge period when we were ramping up from the early 2000s where they kept pushing graphics, but that can only get you so far, and now no one talks about the graphics. Look at how realistic this looks, or this or that. The only thing where people come out and say anything about graphics is if it looks terrible, or the CGI is Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, or if it's just janky movement or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's gameplay, right? If your character's movement is out of place and looks bad, it feels bad to play, that's more gameplay than graphics, I guess.
Mm-hmm. How about you? Any other video games you've been playing? Janky or otherwise?
I mean, I've only played this week one video game.
Which one?
And that's a really old one, again from the early 2000s.
Back
Guild
when
Wars
graphics 1. Didn't matter?
I mean, on my potato computers, I don't think they ever mattered. So years ago, this would have been a couple years ago, a concept was released for Guild Wars 1, which was known as an Iron Man playthrough, and there are varying levels for this, but essentially it comes down to playing the game in release order. Now, for those unaware, Guild Wars sold itself as an MMO. I do not consider it an MMO. If it came out nowadays, I don't think anyone would consider an MMO. Essentially, it's a single-player RPG experience that you can play with others if you so desire. What this means is that you have towns and outposts where you can meet other players, but once you leave them and go into either a mission or just a zone for questing, it is instanced. It is its own dungeon, essentially, and no one else can influence it. So if you take people with you into it, you'll all see the same thing, but no outsider can intrude on your experience.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to that, the game is very much segmented like just a regular RPG. There are 3 campaigns and then a smaller expansion that adds on, but you can play each campaign individually. It has a cohesive story that you follow as you go through. So essentially the Iron Man playthrough is just you start at the beginning at the first one that was released, you play through it, not interacting with any of the current players unless they are also Iron Men, and then you play through all 3 campaigns and the expansion, and that's just a way to play. And I thought, well, this is a unique way to play because nowadays everyone has, maxed out everything under the sun. The big thing for Guild Wars is gear doesn't matter. So something like World of Warcraft, you sit around and you're like, man, I need a better weapon. I need better armor. I'm going to go into these dungeons and these raids to get better loot and, accumulate better stuff, upgrades constantly. Guild Wars doesn't do that.
So it's just skills and abilities? That's all that matters?
It's literally just skills and abilities that you're putting on there because it's really easy to get max armor, and there is max armor, but the only thing that changes is essentially how it looks. So you pick, your cosmetic favorite, and weapons are also easy to get. So all you're doing essentially is, or rather the one thing that changed is that in the 3rd campaign, Nightfall, they add heroes. So again, I did say it's like an RPG because in something like Knights of the Old Republic, for instance, you make your team with, however you want to build it. If you want to bring all Jedi or, a Twi'lek and the Wookiee, I can't remember their names. You can build a team how you want. Guild Wars is the same thing because depending on where you are in the game, you can play with either 4 to 8 people. And as the player base died, people were forced to take what are called henchmen. And these are terrible AI-controlled helpers with preset builds that you cannot touch and armor, and so you'd go through with them. So in your Iron Man playthrough, essentially you're always playing with these henchmen, but once you reach Nightfall, they introduce something called heroes. And heroes are essentially henchmen, except you can personalize their build and their gear and their stats. And so you can literally just make overpowered builds very easily to face roll through all the content. So this Iron Man was a way to stop that, essentially, because the way the game's set up is most things are account bound.
Right.
So if I have a maxed out character with all the skills and super overpowered builds, and I make a new character in Nightfall, and I just get heroes, I can immediately put the overpowered builds with all those skills onto their bar, even though that character in particular does not have access to those skills yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so then I've just been playing essentially the hardest version of it, which is hardcore Ultimate Iron Man or what have you, and all that means is that if I die once, I have to delete the character and restart. Also, I cannot use any of the merchants because the merchants are connected to the actual in-game economy. So prices for runes to upgrade armor and materials to make armor fluctuate with who's buying and who's selling. So you don't have access to any of that. You essentially have to use what you find and salvage armor and items in order to get the materials needed to make armor instead of buying them off of merchants.
So really, this whole gameplay style is just, you've played through the main game so many times or found it so easy that you just had to hamper yourself in all these different ways. Like a Nuzlocke run.
Yeah, essentially like a Nuzlocke run. And so far, I just made it to Nightfall for the 2nd time because my first hardcore Ultimate Iron Man character got killed in a dungeon.
Oh no.
And it made me very sad because I died to a bug. So the final boss of this dungeon has a skill which, when it expires, deals a huge bit of spike damage to everyone in the surrounding area. Unfortunately, and I wasn't aware of this, that skill is bugged. So every time this boss casts it, it doesn't go off when it expires, but once the boss dies, every single bit of spike damage goes off all at once. So if it cast it 4 times, you're getting hit with 4 times that spike damage. So I was running around killing this boss, thought everything was hunky-dory, until I died when I immediately got spiked for like 10,000 damage. So I mean, I guess you could argue if that invalidates the run or not. I said it did, so I started a new one. But yeah, I thought it was fun. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because World of Warcraft recently came out with essentially the hardcore challenge, and it's actually been integrated into the game.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so essentially they've done something, I believe it, I don't know, I don't actually play it. I've only been watching videos on YouTube because it enthralls me. But I think it's called Season of Mastery, where they're essentially doing just like, they're called ARPGs, action RPGs. That's what the Diablo and Torchlights are called. I called them CRPGs last episode, and that's wrong.
Okay.
But they do
acronym.
seasons, like ladder seasons.
Okay.
And so they're started releasing this for World of Warcraft, where I think it's only for Classic. Maybe Burning Crusade, I'm honestly not sure. But for Classic, essentially, it's called Road to Rag, where the goal is, as soon as you start, you get a little buff in the corner of your character, which you lose as soon as you die. So the goal is to never die. If you die, you have to delete and make a new character and kill Ragnaros, who is the final boss of, the raid, the first, big raid, without dying. And when you do, you get another little icon where it says, "You killed Ragnaros, aren't you great?" So I've been watching it. I've been watching a guy called Guzu, but it's just hilarious because people are actually dying, and they're dying at level 60. Some of them are dying in these raids.
Oof.
And you sit there and you're like, that's, one character is 40 hours of playtime just to get him to max level? And they can die to the dumbest stuff known to man. There's a bunch of videos that you can find online of just all the stupidity that's been done in order to get these characters killed.
Like what? Jumping off a cliff?
Yeah, they do a bunch of really stupid things. So for instance, there was one video I was watching where they're in Blackrock Spire. I don't know if it's upper or lower, I can't remember. I played Classic only when it first came out. I've never gone into the revamped Classic they recently released a couple of years ago. But essentially, they're thinking, it's a group talking over okay, do we want to bypass, a hallway of mobs by jumping down here? And so, but the way the jump works is that you have to jump and land on an enemy. So as soon as you jump down, you're taking fall damage, plus you're instantly aggroing a pack. And so you have to get them all down. And some of the players kind of, reticent. They're like, I'm not sure. I've never done this before. The other guy's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. It'll be way better. So they're saving, 5 minutes of time. And they jump down and it all goes to crap. And they overpull and they pull a second group as well. And everyone starts dying. There's a full wipe. These are level 60 characters.
So you're telling me they spent 40 hours or 80 hours, whatever, to make these characters this level. And then to save 5 minutes, they all die.
Yeah, essentially. Well, to be fair, in this video, the worst performing character, or the hunter, who did literal nothing but, I think, auto-attack the whole video, is the only one who ends up escaping because he feigns death and her hearthstone's out. But yeah, and it's always just these little niggly little things where they want to save, 5-10 seconds or something, getting someone killed. The only video that I've seen of Guzu being in a group where someone died is they were in Dire Maul, another high-level dungeon, and they want to try to bypass these wandering patrols by following a thin line. And what ends up happening is they screw up. I think it's the healer. It might be a healer or a mage. I can't remember who exactly. Gets cut off by a wandering pat moving through them, and then they get aggro. So the healer is now unable to be part of the party, and the party is trying to fight this, and I believe their tank, the druid tank, ends up dying because of it. And they all know afterwards that they've made a stupid mistake. All you're doing is saving it. I mean, probably a couple minutes, but it's just like, it's not worth it. But yeah, currently they're in Molten Core, which is that big raid where Ragnaros is the end. Mm-hmm. And they're going through so slowly. Like the first few weeks, it was just, we're only killing trash mobs to try to get random bind on equip upgrades. And then they've killed, I think, 3 bosses total. So they're going through super slow because if they start spiraling down, that'll be 40 characters max level dead.
So how many people have managed to reach that end goal, or is this an ongoing thing?
It's an ongoing thing.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know if anyone's completed it yet because I'm not super into the World of Warcraft community. Literally, my only touchstone to it is watching the Guzu daily videos where he posts about it.
Okay.
Because that's like 10 minutes of time, because I'm not going to sit there and watch a 3-hour raid where they kill, 2 bosses.
So shout out to Guzu. Your stuff's good.
Yeah. But yeah, so pretty much that's my version is the Guild Wars one. I think Guild Wars did it first, and not the first game ever to do hardcore, obviously, because they've existed forever. But in the MMO that I'm aware of, I think Guild Wars was the first to bring it out.
Nice. Way to go, yeah. Guild Wars.
I only ended up losing 160 hours, so there you go, when my character died to that glitch.
A paltry 160 hours.
Yeah, only.
I mean, if you put that in a week, that is a solid chunk of change of time spent on that. Do you usually put on something on another monitor while you play it, or what's your go-to?
Yeah, I always put something on another monitor, which for me is generally just either YouTube or movies.
Good old YouTube.
Yeah, and good old Netflix as well, and movies and such.
Movies like Power Rangers? Was that a second monitor film, or was that a primary monitor?
No, okay. that was a second monitor film. Out of our whole list today, aside from Spider-Man, where I went to go see it in theaters, I've only seen one movie that was a main screen one, and that was The French Dispatch.
The French Dispatch. What's that one about? Are they French, and where are they going?
I mean, it's an anthology. I don't follow artsy films, really. I'm not an artsy type of guy. If you were to ask me anything in regards to movie making and shot composition, I'd be like, I like this, I don't like that, I don't know why, I am a pleb.
Anytime the camera moves, it's a pan. Gotcha.
Yeah. Have you heard of Wes Anderson?
I have, yes. He's a very symmetrical man.
Yeah. I've only seen 2 of his films now.
Which ones?
Like 2.01 of his films.
Alright, what's 01?
Well, I watched The Grand Budapest Hotel on an airplane,
and
that was the first time I really experienced him, and I really enjoyed it. If you were to ask me what my favorite one of his is, because I've only seen like 2 movies, I would say The Grand Budapest Hotel is an amazing film.
Yep, really love that one myself.
And then the .1 is The Life Aquatic. With something or other, because it was when I was in university, I only had 3 TV channels, and it was playing on one of them, and I watched the first 20 minutes, and then I was like, it's 3 a.m., I'm going to bed. So I never finished it.
What a responsible university student you are.
I know. And then, so I watched The French Dispatch. I think it's worse than The Grand Budapest Hotel, but it's still one of those films where you watch it and you're just enthralled. And the stories are well done, well told. I mean, honestly, it sold itself as a comedy anthology. I would rather say it's a lighthearted anthology, kinda.
Is it still like all symmetrical and pastel colors and quirky characters? Yep. All right, got the whole Wes Anderson seal on it. Good. Yeah,
the one thing with Wes Anderson is he always reuses the same actors. It's all just like a tight family.
Where can Bill Murray come in?
You have Bill Murray. So essentially, before we get into it, the plot is that there is a travel newspaper that has been in production for ages and ages, and when the owner of the paper dies, he has it written in his will that they're gonna print one more copy, which is gonna be reprinted. They're going to reprint, I think it was three or 4 old articles that have been published previously, plus the obituary. So the entire film is just them playing through essentially the reprinted stories that are going to be done.
Okay.
So Bill Murray plays the owner of the hotel, or of the newspaper, who dies, and then you have the same actors. Willem Dafoe's in it, because of course he is.
Good
old
choice.
Willem Dafoe.
Can't go wrong.
Though he has a very minor role in this one, though, which is a bit unfortunate. But then you have Edward Norton. He always shows up in it.
Yep.
And you have Adrian Brody. He's in it.
Sure. Why not?
You have I can't remember if Tilda Swinton was in Grand Budapest, but she's here.
Hey, she's great.
Yeah. Same thing with Benicio del Toro. He's in it. He's a major
quite an A-list cast going on.
Yeah. And then, I don't know why, I don't know what the connection is, but Owen Wilson's in there as well. He's always in them. I don't know why.
Wow.
He's not a good actor.
Well, he's fun.
Luckily, his story is the shortest one, and also just forgettable and terrible. It's literally just him biking through a city while reciting what he sees. But yeah, and also, I don't know the actor's name. He's the one who played Zero in Grand Budapest Hotel, who is the newly hired concierge or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, the kid. He's in it. He plays the younger Benicio del Toro when he goes crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. So so this grand A-list thing. It's just what would you call it? The spectacle of the shot.
I think that's a fantastic way to describe it, actually.
Yeah, it is something to savor in my mind. Something about the way his films are shot.
So you would recommend The French Dispatch?
I would.
Do they ever speak French in the film, or?
Yes, there is a lot of French in the film. Luckily, there are subtitles, but I mean, for the most part, I can understand it. Except there is, again, the first story. Some of that French, they're speaking really fast.
Okay, but yeah. So you need to be in the correct state of mind.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's for a lot of films in general, but especially like the more leaning towards artsy ones.
Yeah.
Where if you're going in there and you're like, I don't want to use my brain or think or anything like that.
That's what Spider-Man's for. When you want to just...
Exactly.
Eat a lot of popcorn, maybe drink something, have a good time, turn your brain off.
Yeah, I said it last time with, Shang-Chi and Black Widow, where I was really down on Marvel as just, average action schlock. But I will say I'm much higher up on Marvel because of the Spider-Man movie. It's really improved my desire to keep watching them now.
Well, you're in luck. They're not going to stop making Marvel movies anytime soon. That is going to go
Good.
on until people stop looking at them.
Yeah, and I've watched one final movie if you want to hear about my gripes.
Oh, I do.
Okay, I watched Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City.
Were they welcomed?
No. And this whole movie is terrible. And because I can, or because I missed out on the opportunity, I'm going to do it now. Wes Anderson, man. You know who else is Wes Anderson? The director behind the Resident Evil movies.
Wait, what? He directed those?
No, the director behind the Resident Evil movies is named like Wes H. something Anderson. He had to make the distinction.
I mean, either he chose that name thinking people might mistake him for Wes Anderson, or that is just a hilarious coincidence.
Or sorry, it's... Oh, never mind. I just double-checked and I screwed it up.
Okay.
It's Paul W.S. Anderson.
Okay, I mean, he's got a lot of the important bits there.
Yeah, so the W.S. makes me immediately go like, oh, Wes Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
But yeah. So, there are what I consider 3 aspects to Resident Evil, and some of them overlap, and, well, 2 of them overlap, and 1 of them doesn't at all.
Ooh, want me to guess them?
Yes.
Alright. Zombies, or otherwise...
No, I'm not talking about aspects. I'm not talking about aspects of Resident Evil, I'm talking about how it exists in media form.
Schlock. Just sort of campy fun.
No, I'm talking about just reduce it to just how it is put into media.
Like video games, movies, and
there you
TV
go.
shows?
And what's the third? No, the third is not TV shows, though it will soon, I think.
Oh no, anime? Comics?
No, it's books. Though there is also the animated stuff, I believe.
Ha!
But yeah, so pretty much as everyone knows, you have the games, right?
I'm familiar.
I figure most people would consider the games to be your tier A, tier 1 canon, right? Like that's the plot of Resident Evil. The problem is that once you start hitting, I think it's Code Veronica, which I've never played, the lore goes out the window and it's super crazy and bizarre, and it gets hard to follow.
I don't know about you, but that's part of what I like about it.
No, exactly.
You don't need to follow it too closely. There's some sort of government organization or big corporation that's making terrible financial decisions and deciding bioweapons are the best way to make a profit. And then it goes poorly, someone gets nuked or exploded, or what happens to Wesker? Does he just get shot? Just things don't turn out well.
Wesker falls in a volcano.
As you do. That's
he
the
gets
classic
exploded in a volcano.
To kill a guy who can withstand getting shot.
Yeah, and then you have the movies, which I figure, honestly, I'm not sure who is most popular. I figure the original Resident Evil movies might have ended up being more popular just because it had a wider audience at the time. Though now I think the games might end up being more popular with the remake of Resident Evil 2 and 3 that happened. But it's very bizarre because the first Resident Evil movie that they came out with pretty much doesn't follow the game at all. It has aspects of it like the mansion and the facility underneath, but the plot is essentially unique.
Yeah.
The second one then actually goes into Resident Evil 2 and copies it a fair bit, where it starts introducing real characters, because Alice doesn't exist in the games, but we get Jill Valentine.
Nemesis.
Nikolai, he's in there.
Nikolai was in the game? Oh.
Yes, Nikolai he's in, okay, so...
Let's get into the lore.
Yeah, here's where things get tricky, because Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 take place at, I believe, essentially the same time.
Okay.
So, yeah, where one is Leon and Claire in the police station, and the other one is Joe Valentine with, is it Carlos?
Sure.
And then Nikolai is with Carlos, and they're trying to escape the city as well, right? So you get into weirdness. So they start introducing characters, and then the third one and everything from there is just garbage. Pretty much. I actually do still like the third one because it's okay, but the end of the third one where there's 1,000 Alices now because they're all cloned and they all have powers, and then at the start of the fourth they all die and Alice loses her powers, just everything goes downhill. And then I think in the second to last one, the last one shouldn't even be talked about because it's so terrible, but they're all terrible. But then they introduce Leon and Claire much later on.
Oh, they're in the movies. I did not actually know that.
Yeah, and by that point, it's just too late. Like, honestly, too late. Like, Claire shows up in number 4? She shows up in number 4, and they have, like, the robot on her chest, which is from the 5th game. But the point is that the lore, everything breaks down and it all becomes terrible. The third one, however, is the book series, which I did read, like, 18 years ago.
So I'm sure you remember everything about it.
I remember almost nothing. But the point is that I did a little bit of research beforehand, and it turns out that I think it was some author who'd written stuff. He was offered the contract to write these books, and I think he said, no, my daughter would do a better job of it. So I think she wrote them. But from what I read on the wiki, she did not play the games or have access to them, so she wrote all of these books based entirely off of, like, the game manuals.
I think that might actually be a more interesting outcome than anything someone who'd played the games would make.
So she wrote 7 books. I think 2 of them are standalone ones, one of which I believe is they go into a facility and they have to fight dinosaurs. It's wild.
I mean, I'm on board.
Yeah, but the point is that it's just wild how Resident Evil has come to be. So we get to Welcome to Raccoon City, and immediately everything is a disjointed mess because it's essentially game 1 and 2 combined into one movie.
Okay.
So you have Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine and Albert Wesker going to the mansion and doing mansion stuff, while simultaneously Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield are at the police station doing that stuff. And then they throw in Lisa Taylor, I believe.
Sure.
So, in the did you ever play the first game?
I played 2, 4, and 5. So, yeah, I don't know the lore at all apart from whatever you dealt with in those. And they kind of retconned it a bit at 4 where you're not dealing with zombies anymore. You're dealing with the Spanish, and it's much scarier, and I love that game.
Yeah, so essentially the first one comes down to the STARS team gets sent to the mansion. Zombies are there. Turns out Albert Wesker's evil, and he's been working for Umbrella, and he's, blackmailing Barry, though Barry doesn't matter. But the point is that one of the, I believe it's either the scientists or the builder. I can't remember exactly the lore. All I remember is that the builder ends up getting trapped somewhere and dies. But Lisa Taylor, as a child, gets experimented on, and her mom and dad are killed, and I believe that she takes their skin and, sews it into, a hat almost, or, a face covering.
Sure.
And she's, she's all deformed or whatever, and she's one of the bosses that you have to face in the game.
All right.
And she's pretty much unkillable, but you end up killing her later on.
Okay.
So she's also in this. So it turns out that in this movie, Chris and Claire were were orphans at an orphanage, which was being used by Umbrella and Birkin to experiment on kids, and Lisa Taylor was friends with Claire, kinda. They interact. And so, 10 years later or whatever, Chris Redfield and them go to the mansion. Claire, who had run away, comes back to the town saying there's a conspiracy, things are going to be bad, we need to stop this. And so she shows up wanting to stop this weird thing, whereas I believe in the game she shows up because her brother goes missing.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure on the timelines, but the first game happens and the mansion explodes, and then X amount of time passes, and the virus has spread into Raccoon City, and so then they're going to destroy Raccoon City because they have to contain it, right?
Yeah, as you
Which
do.
is why Jill...
Nuke your own city.
Yeah, so Jill Valentine, who was in the mansion and escaped, is now in Raccoon City, on leave or whatever for lying about the outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
But they mishmashed all these little pieces together, and none of it works out because they're trying to create... I don't want to call them unique characters from what they have because it's rude to what they created, or it's rude to, I guess, unique characters. So to go just from the top, they turned Leon Kennedy into a buffoon, into just an idiot. He's the dumbest person known to man. He's now in Raccoon City because during training he made an oopsie and shot his partner in the butt, and so his dad got him a cushy job over here in Raccoon City. So every time he comes on screen, all the police officers just yell at him and demean him and tell him to get lost. And then throughout the movie, he's doesn't know how to use a gun, doesn't know how to load his shotgun. I'm going to go talk to this guy who's in a jail cell. I got too close and the guy took my gun. Guess I got to do what he says now. And so they ruin Leon Kennedy as a character in its entirety. It's terrible. Everyone else isn't really a character at all.
They just an archetype and
not even. They're almost just like blank slates.
Who can shoot and go pow pow pow.
I feel like because they don't have enough time to focus on anybody, as people, it's just here's a mannequin walking from A to B, and they yell every now and then.
Huh.
So Claire is just angry at everything. Whoever the actress is, she looks a lot like Aubrey Plaza almost.
All right.
So I don't know if they were trying to do that, monotone thing, but it doesn't work. Much later in the film, they come across a video playing of Birkin doing experiments with these 2 what appear to be albino-looking twins.
All right.
Which, if you aren't aware, that's, I believe, referencing Resident Evil Code Veronica, I think.
I was going to say Children of the Corn.
No, because the only reason I know any of this is because of the book, right? The Code Veronica book that they wrote. Because Claire ends up going to this weird island where they have these weird twins. Or I can't remember if they were twins. I think one of the twins is dead. Don't quote me on that. They were doing doing experiments there. And she comes across that she and her brother were going to be experimented on too, but she escaped, so they didn't. And instead her brother became like best friends with Birkin, and Birkin got him through the academy and to become a STARS officer. But the point is that she then has the scene where she's like, starts ripping pages out of the book, talking about the kids that are dead, and then she does this like half-hearted scream like, ah! And Leon's standing there looking like an idiot. He's like, it's all right, Claire. It's just, I hate it. I hate every minute of it. Yeah. And what's worse is they didn't even do the zombies properly.
What did they do to the zombies? How do you screw up zombies? You have slow zombies, you have fast zombies, maybe you have some slightly mutated zombies. What did they do to them?
Well, it's a mishmash of everything under the sun. So it starts off with Claire, walking into town, and she's looking through the windows, and all the people there essentially look like they're undergoing chemotherapy. So like most of their hair is thin and almost falling out, and they're all like veiny and stuff.
All right.
But they're acting normally until suddenly they're not. And so they're running. Like the first zombie she encounters runs through a door, like a screen door thing, and attacks her while yelling itchy tasty or something.
Okay.
And so then later on, so that ends up happening, and then they lock down the police station, right? And close the gate, and then you have the zombies just kind of standing at the gate, putting their hands through, just going like, ah. So now they're the slow zombies, kind of, except they're not, because then they break through that barricade somehow and start running again.
All right, so they're fast when the plot demands they are.
And again, they don't look or act like zombies in any way, shape, or form.
So they're talking?
I mean, near the end, not anymore, but initially, yeah.
Okay.
And screaming, and like there's a little boy who's like hiding under a thing, but he's also clearly poisoned and gonna turn, and he says like, you should be afraid or something. Just
classic horror child line.
But what are they? They aren't zombies.
They're infected?
Well, they are. I mean, God knows what they are. They're enraged. But so and then okay, so here's another one. I'll throw it out here for you.
Throw it.
They ruin Albert Wesker.
How do you do that? You just take Agent Smith and make him a little more evil and hell-bent on making money.
Yeah, so the thing, and this is where they steal from the movie, the first movie. So, do you recall in the movie the elevator scene where the girl gets her head destroyed in the elevator?
Is this the first movie?
Yes, the very first movie.
Was that in the prologue part of the movie?
Yeah, it's the prologue part.
Okay, yes.
Where they lock down the lab and then kill everyone, essentially.
Yeah.
And it turns out that girl was there undercover in Umbrella because she wanted to bring out proof that they were doing terrible things. So in this one, Albert Wesker is that character. He's getting paid money to go into this lab or what have you to find proof of Umbrella's misdeeds.
So you're telling me Wesker is a good guy?
You think so.
Oh.
But then, because again, in the games and the movie, he works for Umbrella. He was behind the research. Except in this one, he gets to a point where everyone's pretty much dead. Wesker is there with Jill, and they find an entrance to the lab. And Jill confronts him and says, "What's going on here? Blah, 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 blah. We need to go find Chris and tell him that Brad Vickers is dead, the helicopter pilot, because he just crashed into the building." And he says, "No, I need to go find misdeeds of Umbrella. This person's been getting in touch with me on my phone, and Umbrella is going to destroy the city in X amount of hours." And so Jill Valentine gets all in a huff, says, "You've betrayed us, you're the worst, I hate you, yada, yada, yada," and leaves him, and Albert Wesker goes off into the lab.
All right.
So then Jill Valentine meets back up with Chris, and she's like, "Oh my god, Wesker betrayed us. He's the worst. And also, the city's going to be destroyed." To which Chris replies, "Man, we better get to that lab then to try to find a way out." So then they go into the lab as well, obviously. At the same time, you end up with Birkin, who is the scientist who was behind most of this. Though it was him and his wife, to be fair, though his wife in this is just a no-name nobody who doesn't know anything. And so Wesker shows up like, "I need the vials of, the T virus." And they end up having a shootout, and Wesker kills shoots Birkin and kills his wife. And then, of course, Sherry from the second game is there, and she hides.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get to this weird point where Wesker is looking for Sherry because he has the vials, and Sherry's there, and she has Birkin's gun, and they're pointing the guns at each other, and you're like, oh my god, it's a standoff. Is Wesker gonna kill Sherry? But then, spoilers, Jill shoots Wesker,
Good.
and Wesker coughs and falls down and says, oh, I was never going to shoot the kid, I swear. You have to believe me. I'm sorry. Blah, blah, blah. You need to get out of here. It's all going to blow up, right? Trying to redeem him, I guess.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, and then, the rest of the plot plays out where Chris and Jill come across, what are their names? Claire and Leon, and then they all escape with Sherry and Hunky Dory. Until the after credit scene, where, surprise, Albert Wesker wakes up, says, oh my god, I thought I was dead, blah blah blah, and it turns out that he's been injected with stuff by Ada Wong, because Ada Wong's in there now, and so Albert Wesker can't see, so he has to wear sunglasses now, the stereotypical sunglasses.
I mean, it makes him look more evil, so...
Except he's still technically a good guy, because Ada Wong isn't a bad guy. I mean, kind of a bad guy, kind of not.
So no one is a bad guy.
No, so, Birkin kind of is a bad guy,
right.
but it turns out that Ada Wong was the person giving him the information to get into the lab to begin with.
Who does she answer to again? Who's she working for?
I'll be honest, I don't know. Because in Resident Evil 4, she doesn't say. She was undercover to try to get into Salazar's entourage, I guess, in order to get access to the virus that lost Plagas. But I don't think we know who she works for. I know that Resident Evil 6... Ada Wong is back. I don't know if they explained what she's in, because I never played 6, but yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, but the point is that they kind of sort of go into the books for that bit. Just because I Googled, I couldn't find reference to it, but I swear in my mind this is what happened. In the books, they were experimenting on these weird albino monkeys, and when Albert Wesker, in the game, he gets stabbed through by Tyrant, right?
Sure.
In the books, I swear to God, some mutated albino monkey drags him to safety where he then wakes up, and that's why Albert Wesker's still alive.
Why not? I mean,
yeah,
you got enough going on in Resident Evil. Why not mutated albino monkeys? Who's
exactly.
it going to hurt? Is it going to hurt the integrity of the Resident Evil storyline? No, I don't think it will. Albino monkeys. Great.
Yeah, so that was my experience with Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. It's terrible in every way, like not fun terrible, just annoying terrible, bad actors, bad everything. It looks super cheap. Like the CGI effects are terrible.
Okay.
Like it's just all bad all the time. Everything. Oh my god, I'd rate it like a 0. Nothing about it's good.
Between Power Rangers and this movie, which one's better?
Which one would I rather rewatch?
Yeah.
Crap.
Is Power Rangers more fun?
No.
And schlocky?
No, No, because, the problem with Power Rangers is that Power Rangers is just a bunch of angsty teen crap.
Isn't that what everyone wants Power Rangers to be?
I don't know. Let's all sit around this fire and talk about how hard our life is.
I'm here to see giant robot fights, but those are expensive.
I live in the trailer park with my mother, and she's sick. I don't go home because I'm worried she'll die. My parents don't understand me, and they want me to have a normal life with normal friends, but I just want to do my own thing, dog. And then the point is, it's all terrible. The only reason I might say Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City over Power Rangers is because I think Resident Evil is a shorter film. Because Power Rangers was 2 hours long.
Okay. So, I won't be watching that movie. Thank you. Yeah, Thank you for your service. For running me through all the major plot points and just telling me not to watch it.
Yeah, everything's bad. And it's also weirdly topical, but not in a good way, where it's pretty much like, everything's a conspiracy. This Umbrella, the pharmaceutical company, is poisoning people on purpose. They're like, oh, what a bad time to bring that movie out. Especially because he's right. Oh my god.
I mean, yeah, Umbrella's the worst.
In the movie, Umbrella's right.
Yeah.
The guy is right.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's specify that.
I just don't get their business plan. Make bioweapons that you can't control, and then keep killing your own employees when they get infected or learn too much. It doesn't feel sustainable to me. But what do I know?
Yeah, exactly. What do we know? We don't run these megacorps.
Nope.
Maybe it's the best business model ever.
So you're telling me Pfizer, or whatever, first company to come to mind, should just start doing their best to make zombies and try to sell those to the U.S. Army?
I mean, why not?
Maybe Space Force, Space Zombies, any of those.
Diversify your portfolio.
It's too diverse. No, just stick to one thing. And oh no, Pfizer has a couple things going for them. Never mind, they're good.
I will say I did see a trailer for a movie called Mooncrash, which reminded me a lot of Prey, the game.
Do love that game.
I do, so I am hoping that Mooncrash is going to be good, but I don't know much about it aside from there's a creature on the moon, or there's a creature with the moon. I'm not sure.
There's a creature in the moon. The moon's a giant egg or something.
I'm not sure. I did a quick Google because I was like, is Mooncrash based on Prey? And as far as I can tell, it's not. But all I read in that first line was something along the lines of, something has pushed the moon out of its orbit with Earth, which, when I saw the trailer, was the weird creature-looking thing. It looked like the Typhon from Prey the game.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm excited for that movie when it comes out.
So it looked like a coffee cup.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so what have you been up to as I took over this whole podcast?
Well, you had to run everyone through all of Resident Evil so we could really understand why it's so terrible. And yeah, you made the world a better place. Thanks for that. I rather enjoyed Locke and Key. Watched that Netflix series. Well, if you go to a certain place in, was it New England? Some portion of the U.S., it's all the same. I'm sure no one in the U.S. would disagree with that. And
I mean, the U.S. is a pretty small place.
Yeah, it's tiny. Every portion of it is exactly the same. They all speak the same language.
Yeah.
It's an easy enough generalization. Anyway, so at the very beginning, I'm going to spoil all of that. The dad of this family dies because some random kid at his school, because he's a school counselor, decides to shoot him and start yelling about, random crap that no one understands. So after that tragedy, everyone else in the family decides, hey, let's move back to where our dad grew up, because that's the only logical thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, they inherit this house because he died, and then his wife, who is an architect or some other kind of home design person, decides to fix it up to sell it at a later date. So, it tracks.
I mean, I'll be honest, if I inherited a house, I'd probably move to go live in it too.
And it's a mansion. It's called the Key House because their last name is the Locks. And
well, in that case, I would not move into it because it would be way too expensive to run heating and all that, so I'll just sell it, I guess.
But here's the thing. It's a magical house with magical keys hidden all over that for some reason the adults in their lives just can't remember. They can't remember the magic that comes from the keys. And the keys whisper, and usually it's the kid, Bodhi, who finds the keys first, and they start figuring out what these all do. One key just kills you, which is fun.
Oh.
I mean, it essentially makes you astrally project. So you walk through a door, your body falls back, and then your spirit goes off, flies around, has a little adventure, and you can come back.
Can you go back? Okay, yeah. So you can go back into your body. So you're not dead.
Unless you get thrown through the door, and then the door's closed, and then your body gets incinerated, like may happen to someone.
How do they learn these rules for the doors and the keys? Is there a book?
There is not.
Oh.
There's a bunch of trial and error, but no one remembers when they become an adult. And why is that? Mysteries.
Because it lives under the mansion.
Funny you should say that. This one was...
Oh, God.
No, It was written by Stephen King, and this story is based off a graphic novel by his son, Joe Hill. And
wonder where Joe Hill got that idea, eh?
I mean... Actually, wait, it probably takes place in Maine, now that I think about it, because all of Stephen King's stuff takes place in Maine. But anyway.
Of course it does.
It does have some Stephen King-y vibes. You can't fault him. He's a very, very successful author, and if you're going to absorb someone's skills, it might as well be him. But the graphic novel, I read all of it. It ended worse than the show ended. And the show goes...
Oh, so the show's over then.
I'm pretty sure the show is still going, but it's gone to some dark places. And at the stage they're at, I'm pretty sure, they hit the resolution that the graphic novel had, and they're going past it.
Huh. That's peculiar.
Well, they just didn't kill as many characters. So
well, it never really ends well when shows or movies go past the source material.
I mean, in this case, the author of the graphic novel is a writer on the show, so
okay, well that's fair then.
I assume it's going to go well. So far, it's been a good adventure. Definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun just finding out what these keys do. Some of them are pretty weird in a fun way, and some are kind of horrific when you think about some of the consequences that could come from them, like just being able to mess with someone's head and take things in and out. For instance, there's the mind key that lets you open up your head, and you could put stuff into your head or take stuff out. So if you threw a book inside, you could memorize everything in the book.
So it's better than Inception.
Yeah, it really is in a lot of ways. But if you were, say, trapped in your own head because you have to sort of, I guess you're astrally projecting, another copy of yourself shows up next to your body, and then they can go into their own head and start poking around, moving stuff around, reliving experiences, whatever. But if you get stuck in there, you're stuck in your own head, and you're just in a coma.
So you're saying that that's a bad thing?
Yes, I'm suggesting that being stuck in a coma is a very bad way to go.
Well, no, not so much stuck in a coma, but using the mind key is a bad thing.
You could use it well, you could use it poorly, like anything else.
Well, if you had a choice, then what would you hide it away, or would you use it?
Oh, I'd totally use it. Memorize any book? Definitely use it.
I knew you were evil this whole time.
Didn't hide it that well. Yeah, but there's tons of other fun keys. You got the Anywhere key, where you put it into a door, and then it'll take you to any other door in the world that you imagine. What else? They got a key that lights anything on fire, which is fun.
That doesn't sound fun.
You have to have seen the
You
door.
have to have seen the door.
It's not any door that you can imagine. You have to have seen the door before in order to go there.
Including a picture of the door.
Yes, because that worked in the show.
Yeah. We were collectively a fan of this show. Pretty good one.
There you go.
Yeah, would recommend. Lots of evilness going on in the show.
Wait, so who's evil?
So, I guess I'm going to spoil some more of the story. Underneath the house, there is a portal to, you could call it hell or a hell or some other dimension or something like that, where there's demons. And they can't exist on our side. If they go through the portal, they become a lump of iron. And it just so happens you can take this lump of iron and mold it into a key, and then it gets magical powers. Haha, that's where it all comes from. But also, if they happen to hit someone before turning into a lump of iron, they can possess them. And they have no morals or hesitation about killing people, using people, just being terrible and doing whatever the heck they want. So, you got a couple of these demons, 1, 2, maybe more, who knows, that come through and starting a whole lot of trouble. And one of them may or may not be immortal due to some key shenanigans.
And is the end goal to bring all the demons through the portal?
Maybe, or maybe it's just to rule the world without any competition.
Oh yeah, that actually makes more sense too. Yeah.
Because if you're pure evil, you're probably going to be pretty selfish, and you just want it all for yourself.
I mean, I do want everything for myself. I'll admit that.
Yeah. And if you're so inclined, you could definitely pick up the graphic novel as well. It's pretty good. Definitely recommend it.
Well, I might add it to my list. I'll probably watch. Not sure about the graphic novel. I've only ever read one graphic novel in my life.
Which one?
The Hobbit.
I mean, with The Hobbit, you got a few options. You could watch it, you could read the book, you could apparently read the graphic novel.
Well, I tried to read the book and I didn't finish it. So.
Oh, it's so fun. My goodness. I'm kind of disappointed in you.
It's boring and terrible. I got to that stupid dream forest, and it's 25 pages of pure description, and I gave up. I said, no, I'm done.
Missing out.
I don't care about your trees and your leaves and your dewy fog crap.
Tolkien loved trees and grass. I seem to remember a portion in The Lord of the Rings where it was just 2 pages talking about the dew on the grass.
I wouldn't know. I never read Lord of the Rings because I couldn't get through The Hobbit.
Yeah, I guess if you can't get through The Hobbit, don't try Lord of the Rings.
Well, no, if I was going to read The Lord of the Rings, I'd want to read the whole thing, starting with The Hobbit, which was my plan. I owned The Hobbit, and I owned the Lord of the Rings series, and I never read it because I couldn't get through The Hobbit.
Wasted.
Yeah, what a waste of money.
But you know another graphic novel that I enjoyed, that got turned into a show that I enjoyed? The Boys. Have you watched any of that one?
I've seen the end of season 1.
So, you've seen the beginning as well, or just the last episode?
Just the end. Yep. Turns out I didn't pay enough attention, and I thought I was watching the start of the show of season 1, and it turns out it was the last episode of season 1.
Now, how? Come on now.
By not being very attentive to my surroundings, and so I watched the last episode of season 1, and that's all I ever saw.
Now, I think you would love this show. I think this one was far better than the graphic novel it was made of. It was fine. I would say the main character is drawn to look like Simon Pegg, which is kind of funny. He's got a Scottish accent, which is also funny. But in the show, they improved it in a bunch of ways. The story, how the powers work, how everyone looks, and you've got Carl Urban, and I happen to know that you are a large Carl Urban fan. So,
freaking love Carl Urban, one of my favorite actors of all time. He's amazing.
Which is part of why I'm so surprised you haven't watched all of this show.
Well, I'm really bad at watching TV shows.
What, you sit down, you stare straight for a bit? You could put it on a second screen. This one would work on a second screen. And then you get cool action stuff.
If I can second screen it, then I might watch it.
Like, there's some stuff you definitely want to watch. There's fun action and a lot of physical comedy sometimes, but, and you never really met Frenchie.
I don't know who that is.
He's a French guy.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. The name is apt.
Yeah, and in real life, doesn't have a French accent, and it trips me up every time I hear him speak, but he just has a very convincing one in the show.
Kind of like Tom Holland.
Like Tom Holland, exactly. Yeah. Or, who plays Commissioner Gordon?
Which one?
Or Sirius Black. Who's the guy who plays Sirius Black?
Oh, that guy. Gary Oldman?
There we go.
No.
Yeah.
Gary, I was right. Good job,
Gary
me.
motherfreaking Oldman. He has a British accent. You wouldn't expect it.
Because in my mind, I was like, when you say Commissioner Gordon, I was like, J.K. Simmons. Because he's the Commissioner Gordon in Justice League, I think.
Okay, I can see it. He plays a good mustached comic book character.
I don't think he has a mustache in it.
Well, he does in Invincible. Is that one you've watched?
No. If it's TV, I probably haven't watched any of it.
Another one based off a comic, which I loved, and I also love the show of.
I mean, I saw the memes because it was, the big thing. So I've seen bits and pieces here and there, but I haven't actually watched the show.
All right, I'm giving you homework. You should watch.
I know.
Invincible.
Well, I mean, I still have homework from last time, which I've probably forgotten.
But you'll like it. That's the thing.
It says a lot for me when instead of watching these good shows, instead I'm watching, Resident Evil and Power Rangers.
I mean, you'd have time better spent. And basically, The Boys and Invincible kind of go off the same thing, where what if they're superheroes, but they're evil? Ooh, or morally grey at the very least.
Isn't that just Injustice, the Justice League thing?
All I know about Injustice is they made a game where they fought Mortal Kombat characters, Spider-Man was powered down, but still evil, because of course he would kick everyone else's butt if he wasn't powered down.
All I know about Injustice is that the Joker kills Lois Lane and it makes Superman go crazy and evil.
Oh, that's what does it.
Yeah.
Not all the other people that the Joker has killed.
Nope.
Just when it affects him.
Exactly.
I expected better of you, Spider-Man. Or Superman.
Yeah, she's Superman. But yeah.
So yeah, you need to watch Invincible.
Well, maybe one day I will, and I'll come in and say, hello, I have watched it. Be proud of me.
J.K.
What do I
Simmons
get
is
if
in
I
it.
watch it? Do I get a polite golf clap?
You'll get a high five.
That seems infinitely worse than a polite golf clap. How can I cash in a high five?
In person, which, of course, is easy to do in a pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Because we totally live in the same city.
Yes, we live in the same side of the country.
Yeah,
even.
Totally. Doesn't cost hundreds of dollars and like 5 hours of flight time to get to you.
Yeah. No, you'll enjoy it. That's what you'll get out of it. It's a fun time.
If I don't like it, I'm never listening to any of your recommendations ever again.
I mean, when have my recommendations gone wrong? I know there's something.
Well, I mean, step one would have to be me actually watching or one of your recommendations.
So you're saying it's all on you?
I'm saying I might have forgotten what I was supposed to be watching last time. There was something was mentioned that I should watch, and I already forgot it.
It must not have been important, because I can't remember either.
Perfect. Good.
But you would like The Boys. You love Carl Urban. It's the Carl Urban show.
I mean, just because Carl Urban's great. I don't know why people don't say how great he is more often. He's the best Judge Dredd.
Yep.
He's the best Bones, but I mean, I don't have a horse in that race. I've never watched any Star Trek except for the new movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best Éomer.
Yep, that's what he was.
Yep. Yeah,
what god was he in Thor?
Yes, he was in Thor. Look at all of his stuff.
Yep, he had the best lines.
He was in that TV show that I didn't watch about robots.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a buddy cop TV show where his partner's like an android or something.
Okay.
Never watched it because again, it's a TV show.
But it's Carl Urban.
I know,
but
the only TV show I've ever watched was The Expanse.
The only TV show you've ever watched.
Ever in my entire life. All those other times I talked about TV shows I watched, didn't actually watch them. It's all a
No
lie, 'cause
hyperbole
that's the
here.
only one I've
Okay.
watched. Nope.
Okay.
And I haven't watched the final season yet.
Okay.
So I guess that's the thing. Let me know when you finished watching the last season of The Expanse. I'll watch the last season of The Expanse, and then we can talk about it.
I have a feeling you'll have more to complain about than I did.
Yeah, but that's because I don't like anything.
I mean, that'll do it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we got homework. I gotta watch The Expanse. You gotta watch
Yep.
The Boys.
And I think that's a show.
That's something. That's two
Yeah.
guys speaking for a period of time, complaining about things, and going over the entirety of the new Resident Evil movie.
No one needs to watch it. Like, literally, you don't need to watch it.
You've
Like,
made that
go,
completely clear. Thank you.
just Google, go onto images, and, like, just kind of scroll through what you see, and you'll be like, oh, that's a bit of a movie, and you're like, that's all you need. You're good.
Heck, play some of your favorite music in the background. Better experience overall.
And if you have a TV show that you want me to watch, put it in the comments, and then I'll laugh if I actually watch it instead of any of the stuff that Great here asked me to watch.
I will actually watch it, because I watch recommended
you don't know
things.
that.
I'll probably watch it. Please don't pick something terrible.
I remember you asked me to watch Castlevania.
Ah, there it is. Yep.
Yeah, didn't watch it.
God damn it.
Didn't even Google it. That's a lie. I Googled it so I could grab the thumbnail image. That's it.
You're the worst. All right, well, I guess that's the end of our show.
Yeah, he's been great.
He's been grim.
Bye.
Toodles.